What really happened to Paul Teutul Jr.? From American Chopper? Picture this. You're watching your favorite reality show when suddenly a grown man starts hurling chairs across a motorcycle shop while screaming at his own father on national television. That man was Paul Teutul Jr. and that moment changed everything. The chair-throwing incident on American Chopper didn't just create one of reality TV's most viral memes. That destroyed a family business, sparked a bitter legal war, and left fans wondering what the hell happened to one of the most talented custom bike builders on television. But here's what's really wild. The story behind that explosive moment goes way deeper than anyone realized. And what Paul Jr. has been up to since then might actually surprise you. I think if you've ever wondered what became of the guy who walked away from millions of dollars in one of TV's biggest shows, stick around. Because we're about to dive into the complete unfiltered story of Paul Teutul Jr.'s rise, fall, and incredible comeback. Let's start from the beginning because Paul Jr.'s story isn't just about fame and family drama. It's about a kid who was basically born into this world. Paul Michael Teutul was born in 1974, and by the time he was 12 years old, he was already learning steel construction and fabrication. Think about that for a second. While most kids were playing video games or riding bikes, Paul Jr. was in his dad's shop learning how to bend and shape metal. His father, Paul Sr., owned Orange County Iron Works, and it seemed natural that his son would follow in his footsteps. But what's fascinating is that even at that young age, Paul Jr. wasn't just copying what his dad did. He was developing his own eye for design and craftsmanship. He spent years mastering the art of steel fabrication, working on everything from railings to decorative pieces. But it wasn't until he discovered motorcycles that everything clicked. There was something about the combination of mechanical precision and artistic expression that spoke to him. By the time he was in his 20s, Paul Jr. had found his calling in custom choppers, and his skills were becoming legendary among bike enthusiasts. This wasn't just a job for him. It was pure passion. That passion was about to make him famous. When American Chopper premiered on the Discovery Channel in 2002, nobody could have predicted it would become the cultural phenomenon it turned into. The show was supposed to be a simple look inside Orange County Chopper, showcasing the incredible custom bikes they built for clients. But what made the show absolutely magnetic wasn't just the motorcycles. It was the family dynamic. Paul Sr. was the gruff old school boss who ran things with an iron fist, while Paul Jr. was the creative genius with an artistic vision that often clashed with his father's practical approach. Their arguments weren't just workplace disagreements. They were emotional, raw, and completely unfiltered. Viewers couldn't look away because it felt real in a way that most reality TV didn't. Over 7 seasons and 6 years, American Chopper showcased some of the most incredible custom motorcycles ever built. The Black Widow bike was a masterpiece of Gothic design that looked like it belonged in a Tim Burton movie. The iRoot bike was a futuristic marvel that seemed to come from another century. And Paul Jr. wasn't just building these bikes. He was The primary designer, the creative force behind machines that were more like rolling sculptures than transportation. His attention to detail was obsessive. Every curve, every piece of chrome, every custom part was carefully planned and executed. These weren't just motorcycles. They were works of art that happened to have engines. The show made Paul Jr. a household name and established him as one of the premier custom bike builders in the world. But success came with a price that nobody saw coming. As American choppers' popularity exploded, the pressure inside Orange County choppers became unbearable. What viewers saw as entertaining family drama was actually a toxic work environment that was slowly destroying relationships. Paul Sr.'s management style was old school tough, which meant lots of yelling, criticism, and public humiliation. Paul Jr., meanwhile, was dealing with the stress of being both a creative artist and a reality TV personality while trying to maintain some kind of relationship with his increasingly difficult father. The breaking point came in 2009 during what seemed like a routine argument about Paul Jr. showing up late to work. But this wasn't just about punctuality. It was about years of built-up resentment, creative differences, and two strong-willed men who couldn't find a way to work together anymore. The argument escalated quickly. Voices got louder. And then Paul Jr. did something that would define his legacy. He started throwing chairs, not just one chair. Multiple chairs went flying across the shop while cameras rolled. And his father screamed at him. It was raw, emotional, and completely unhinged. Paul Sr. fired his son on the spot and Paul Jr. stormed out, probably thinking he'd be back to work in a few days after things cooled down. Neither of them realized they had just created one of reality TV's most infamous moments. And, more importantly, they had just destroyed their family business on national television. The aftermath of that chair-throwing incident was like watching a slow-motion car crash that lasted for years. What started as a workplace argument quickly turned into something much more serious because Paul Jr. wasn't just an employee. He was a co-founder of Orange County Choppers and owned 20% of the company's shares. When Paul Sr. decided he wanted to buy out his son's ownership stake, things got complicated fast. Instead of sitting down and working out a fair deal like a normal family might do, both men lawyered up and prepared for war. Paul Sr. filed legal papers that essentially forced his son to sell his shares while Paul Jr. fought back with accusations of corporate waste and fraud. The legal battle dragged on for 2 years, costing both sides hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees while their relationship deteriorated even further. Meanwhile, American Chopper was canceled. Orange County Choppers lost its biggest marketing tool, and fans around the world watched their favorite reality TV family tear itself apart in court documents and tabloid headlines. The whole situation was made worse by the fact that Paul Jr. was contractually prohibited from building motorcycles for a full year after leaving Orange County Choppers. So, not only had he lost his job and his relationship with his father, but he couldn't even do the work he loved most. And Paul Jr. finally lost the legal battle and was forced to sell his shares to his father for an undisclosed amount. The money gave him the capital to start his own business. But the emotional cost of the whole ordeal was devastating. While Paul Jr. was fighting legal battles and trying to rebuild his life, something unexpected was happening behind the scenes. Instead of jumping right back into motorcycle building, he made a surprising business decision that confused a lot of people. Paul Jr. Designs, his new company, started out manufacturing steel camping stoves. Yes, camping stoves for someone who had built some of the most incredible custom motorcycles in the world. Making camping equipment seemed like a massive step backward. But Paul Jr. had his reasons, and they reveal a lot about his character and business sense. First, his contract with Orange County Chopper specifically prohibited him from building motorcycles for 1 year. So, he needed to find another way to use his metalworking skills. Second, and more importantly, he wanted to prove to himself and everyone else that he could build a successful business from scratch without relying on his family name or reality TV fame. As he explained in interviews at the time, after 20 years of working under his father's shadow, he needed to take control of his own life and create something entirely his own. The camping stove business wasn't glamorous, but it was his, and it gave him the confidence and financial foundation he needed to eventually return to his true passion. When the contractual restrictions expired in April 2010, Paul Jr. Designs officially became a motorcycle shop, and Paul Jr. was finally free to build the bikes he'd been dreaming about during his year in legal and creative limbo. The transformation of Paul Jr. Designs from a camping stove manufacturer to one of the premier custom motorcycle shops in the country is actually an incredible business success story that doesn't get talked about enough. Without the backing of a major television network or his family's established reputation, Paul Jr. had to prove himself all over again. But he had something that money can't buy: pure talent and a reputation for incredible craftsmanship. Word spread quickly through the motorcycle community that Paul Jr. was back in business and taking commissions. His first few bikes after the split were absolutely stunning, showcasing not just his technical skills, but also his evolution as an artist. Without his father's influence or the pressures of television production schedules, Paul Jr.'s designs became more personal, more refined, and somehow even more impressive than his Orange County Chopper's work. The shop started getting commissions from celebrities, motorcycle collectors, and everyday enthusiasts who wanted a piece of Paul Jr.'s artistry. But Paul Jr. wasn't content to just build custom bikes. He was thinking bigger. Paul Jr. Designs began participating in motorcycle shows and exhibitions across the country, building a national reputation that was entirely separate from American Chopper. The business grew steadily, king talented craftsmen and taking on increasingly complex and expensive projects, proving that Paul Jr. didn't need reality TV fame to be successful in the motorcycle world. Just when it seemed like Paul Jr. had moved on completely from his television past, something unexpected happened that changed everything. In 2018, nearly a decade after the original show ended, American Chopper was revived for a second time, and both Paul Sr. and Paul Jr. agreed to participate. The Vivaler's series was different from the original show, older, more mature, and focused on the craft rather than manufactured drama.